interesting day, especially given the latest events around UCT, but we're not going to talk about that. We're here to celebrate, first to celebrate and to have a really interesting conversation. And the celebration is to launch the student newspaper called VernacNews, in case some of you have not seen it. Congratulations to the editors and the contributors of VernacNews. But also to talk about something really crucial, a question that many of us are asking at this university. What is African about UCT? And this is a very important question for us here at HUMA, because this question basically talks about what it means for us to be here in this space, but also how we experience being human in this space. So I hope we'll talk a little bit about some of those issues. But also just to flag out that it's also an interesting conversation to be having right now at UCT, given that the SRC has just launched their Transformation Month. Actually, I went to launch it on Monday. Was it Monday? Yeah, on Monday. So this is very interesting that a lot of these things are happening right now at this time of UCT, and perhaps that's something for us to reflect on. But to go straight to the question, what is African about UCT? Perspectives from VernacNews editors and contributors, etc. We'll be joined by Tariq Ahmad, who is the founder and chairperson of VernacNews. We also have Nolu Vuyom-Joli, who is the editor from Nguni Opinions and Features. We also have Maseka Setlodi, the head of Tswana and Sotho editor, the editor for head and Tswana and Sotho. We also have Ramabina Mahaba, right? He's the SRC president. And Aka Tutu, who's a UCT student. So welcome to all of you, and yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation. So what we're going to do, we're going to allow our panelists to speak for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up to everybody to ask questions and to engage, etc. But perhaps maybe to kick off is for me to ask Tariq, why VernacNews? You know, we know at UCT there are other newsletters. The main one that many students read, which now is pink. But why VernacNews? What is the significance and the importance of VernacNews?
Because it's it. Molweni. Gamalam Tariq, Ifuna Apa UCT. Today's topic is a very important one to discuss, especially, like Zeta said, the incidents we've been having and just in general at UCT. And it's the same title or headline that an article that our SOC President Ramabina Mahapa had in the previous edition of Asking, What is African about UCT? Where he discussed and analyzed what is African or the lack thereof, where he pointed out and points which I have to agree with, where UCT had a more Eurocentric approach or angle rather than an African one, despite the fact that it's a university in Africa. So I thought I'd share with you today the story of how VernacNews came about, and it was this very article that myself and a friend of mine, Kwezi, who's in the audience today, somewhere in the audience.
There's the quiz.
And we were discussing this, and of the many discussions that we have, we discuss how can we improve things at UCT, the various problems that it has, and the root of the problem. How can we make UCT more African? And at the same time, I had heard about the success of Isolezwe, a Zulu-based newspaper in KZN. And over the past 5 years, it had been outperforming some of the best English titles in KZN. And so, wow, if that worked there, surely we can use a similar model here at UCT. And so I floated that idea, and we said, yeah, let's go for it. And so to take things forward, I did a survey, just under 100 students, asking them many questions the most important question I ever was, would they be interested in reading a newspaper in their home language? And more than 2/3 of those students said yes, yes they would. And so I got an editorial team together. I went out and found any willing student who would be willing to edit and write articles in their own language. And of the other official language besides English, the ones that approached me were Xhosa student and a Tswana student. So I thought, well, let's go with that model. And we launched on the 9th of October 2014 last year. And our date, our vision is to explore our African identity through the languages of our land. That's what we're about, to paraphrase that. And this year we're looking at distributing 6 editions, 3 per semester. Currently we have a Facebook page, Twitter page, Instagram page, and we have a website. And I've just talked a bit about how the idea came about. Right now we have a new team, more members representing more languages, and we're looking to expand and further explore how we can solve this issue of African identity through our newspaper. And that's a team photo we launched of the whole team. And I think just to detract a little bit from the newspaper, let's explore what is it, what is African identity? When we talk about African identity, what do we mean? And I went and did some research, and this case study that I covered talked about how close language and identity is to an individual. It might not be the determining factor of one's identity, but there's a strong relationship between language and identity. And that's why you see so many black students who come here, when they come to a place like UCT where predominantly English is the main medium of communication, they feel that their identity is in some way being restricted or being taken away, being stripped away because of that. So I think when we're trying to uncover identity, when we say African identity, in what context do we mean African identity? And I think just to sum up what Mangaliso Roberts-Sobukwe said about African identity and what it means to be African. You are African because I am African because I was born here, but more importantly, I pledge my allegiance to Africa. It is my sole duty, and it is incumbent upon me to uplift my people and encourage my fellow African brothers, and to have that kind of focus. As an African, it is my duty. And I think our SSC president, in that article that he wrote, was echoing a lot of what Umangaliso Roberts-Sobukwe said, where he said, just to paraphrase again, I'm an African because I'm a child of the soil, and I support and encourage my fellow Africans. My sole focus is here for my African brothers. So when we look at UCT, how can we discuss UCT in terms of aspects, African aspects? Can we use another university as a benchmark? Right there you can see the University of Timbuktu. Can we really take appearance and use that as a comparison? I don't think so. I think we have to look internally within the university itself and see where those internal factors can project and promote African identity and expression. So when we look at UCT's language policy, or actually just the use of language at UCT, I think there are some really good small initiatives like Masitete Xhosa, a free course where you learn Xhosa. And recently UCT just came out with this new course where you learn accounting in Xhosa and Zulu. I think these are good, but I think more focus needs to be shifted on more of these things happening and just promoting them, because after asking some students if they knew about these two initiatives, not many of them could recall anything of the sort. So I think more needs to be done there. More of these need to be fleshed out and promoted and really focused on. When we look at the curriculum at UCT, I think from just my discussions, especially with Kwezi, who does politics and philosophy and economics, and myself as a BCom graduate in economics and finance, a lot of the theories that you learn are mostly from European scholars, when I'm pretty sure that there are just as enough or even more African scholars talking about African issues. And I think us as Africans can relate more to that than European examples or European theories. I'm not saying we shouldn't account for European theories at all, other worldly theories, but focus should be on African scholars. And I think also just in terms of history, our history, we seem to have a bit more focus for someone who isn't a major in history or that. We have more of a focus on post-colonial or colonial era or post-colonial era history, when pre-colonial era history isn't focused on at all, or there's a very small amount of focus on there, where we learn about the African kings or the Malian empires. The richest man in the world to have ever existed was a black Muslim man in Mali, Mansa Musa. I'm pretty sure not many people, the random student, know that. These are the things that we should be knowing about, I don't know, I don't want to use modern examples, but similar famous men, European men for that matter. We should be knowing about this because we are African. We should know our history. We should know our pre-colonial history. We should know how powerful the African continent was at a point in time where East Africa, Asia, and Southeast Asia, that was the central economic hub at the world at one point. That was a point in the world where we nearly had a free trade system before colonialists came and messed things up. I also think another area where we can look at as an African aspect of UCT is the naming of buildings. And yes, this has shown more progress, with more buildings being named after struggle activists and famous Africans and South Africans. But I think more can be done there. I think with the recent statue debacle, I think I definitely understand why students would protest about having a statue there. And after hearing from a friend, it is almost like you as a student, as a Jewish student, for example, going to a university where there's buildings or statues glorifying Hitler. That kind of same effect, what Cecil John Rhodes means to you, for example. Anyway, detracting from that, I think more can be done there in the naming of buildings. We have so many wonderful South Africans and Africans that have contributed to the world, not just Africa, that we can celebrate in the naming of our buildings and statues. So I think many of you in the audience are wondering, there's some burning questions that I thought I might address in my talk. And I'm sure I've heard myself, why was a newspaper like Vernac started by someone who's Indian? And I just want to respond to that now. I'm an African. My allegiance is to Africa. My allegiance is to the African people. It is incumbent upon me to encourage and help and uplift my people of Africa. I don't pledge allegiance to anywhere else, not India for that matter. I pledge my allegiance to the people here. And I'm an African. So I thought I just might say that. And also I've had some comments about how there was no predominantly Afrikaans articles based in the newspaper, or lack thereof. And I think I've explained that already. When I approached students, willing students who wanted to be on the editorial team, no one approached me for the Afrikaans editorial position. Although we do accept Afrikaans and yes, even English articles in our newspaper, our core is African issues, and our core is African ones and African lines of expression. And I think some people are also wondering why the name Vernac came about. And this is a discussion between myself and Kwezi. We discussed maybe having at first Indaba, but that had two problems. One, it was a bit too formal, and secondly, and most importantly, it wasn't fully representative of what I wanted the newspaper to be. If someone, for example, a Tswana-speaking person saw Indaba, they would not really have an inclination to pick it up, simply because of the name. So I wanted to avoid something like that, and we thought, well, Vernac is the best that we can do and we can go forward with, because it derives from the English word vernacular, which means languages of the land, and that's really what the newspaper is about, promoting the languages of the land.
I'm in charge of the opinions and features on Vernac. I wasn't part of Vernac when it started. I only became part of them after I saw one of the ads wanting for editors. I got to be concerned with the fact that there were no Zulu editions there, so I applied and then I got in. So now, in me being part of Vernac is, I am trying to preserve our languages because I think they're fading. UCT has got a colonial legacy of promoting whiteness. Here, I do not mean whiteness in terms of the race, I mean the culture. UCT culture is very white and Eurocentric. Even the American students who come here expecting to find that exoticness, they just get disappointed when they see even the new building, that one that cost 209 million, the new engineering building, it reflects nothing about being African UCT. One might be asking, what does it mean to be African? Do we determine it by the way you dress, the way you speak, the way your hair, your skin color? Well, I don't know, but Peter George says it does not matter where you come from. But if you're a black man and living in Africa, then you're an African. But then again, I said, Tosh, while we have Indians, we've got Asians here, how can you take away others? And then I went to Biko. Biko says being black is not just a matter of the skin color. It's a way of life. It's not just about that. So UCT reflects nothing about being African here. I'm mostly concerned about management. Management in UCT is very much white. And you get the deans and the executives here being Europeans or European descendants. It's only a few, less than 25 non-white academics are here. And that is very much problematic because I, as an African, find it very hard to relate to them. In my second year, it was very tough, and I felt very humiliated when an Afrikaans lecturer in the politics department told me that I was speaking bullshit in front of 200 learners. That was after I raised concerns. She was presenting about the successes of the TLC in South Africa. She was saying that the TLC has been the most successful thing that South Africa has ever got because people are living peacefully. Then I raised up my hand to ask, what is peaceful in this world? Because, I mean, when you look at Cape Town on its own, it has racism problems. And then she said, that is bullshit. The reason why you only invite 2 people to the hall is because the venue is small. Then my question is that you just built a building for 209 million, you just renovated it. Why can't we expand Jamison Hall then? So that we can invite everybody that wants. Those are the things we should be talking about here. The last thing again that I'm very much bothered with in UCT, I was, in my first year I lived in Tagol, my second year I was in Forest, and now I'm in Ops. All of these races have got policies that say, we do not want candles in your room. That is very much problematic with me, because as you can see in this pan, it means that you light a candle in a for your incest. You connect to your ancestors. So now, whenever I light my incest thing, that fire thing goes off. And then it becomes a problem because I've been taken to DC for those things. So now I'm expected to leave my Africanness outside UCT and adopt the European ways of the Queen. I thought the Queen left ages ago, but it's still here. So my joining VernacNews was to try and create that consciousness within people because we're very ignorant. Even the so-called African blacks, they're also ignorant about these things. They try to get over the system. So yeah, that's that for me.
Yes, okay, go for it.
Dumelang. This is where you all respond, okay? Let's try to get Dumelang. So, Kinali What's 5 UCT? That means I have 5 years, being here at UCT. And from the beginning, from all week, this is drilled in you, this is installed in you. You are at the #1 university in Africa. In your lectures, during all week, every day, you're just reminded you are at the best university in Africa. But if we're the #1 university in Africa, what can we pride ourselves in about being African? In his speech when he was exiting as president of the SRC in Forte, Robert Sobukwe said, an African university should have the Department of African Studies in highest order. People must flock in their masses to come here, to the best university in Africa, to study African history, and not just the history that we were taught in high school of slaves being taken from Africa to America. People were taken from Africa to America, not the history where we were being taught about the struggle that Africa is in. We want to know the history about the kings and queens that ruled Africa, the empires of the universities in Timbuktu that were first built here in Africa. And I don't understand how we can pride ourselves in being the #1 university, like Nolovia has said, if the system here is really, really European. Like we are led by European thought, and we're strongly influenced by European stuff, as Norovia has already stated. And also, my one problem that I have is during all week, we are taught the European way of all week. We get taken to the beach, we get taken to clubs, and then you get that one African thing, guys, let's go to Zoli's, and then there's the African vibe. I feel like there's more that we can do during all week. That's the first that's the first experience you get of UCT. And already from the beginning, it's just really like European, nothing about it screams, you are at an African institute. So before I joined VernacNews, really there was nothing that I could pride myself in about, my university is leading the African agenda forward. Me joining VernacNews makes me feel like I'm connecting with my African identity, I don't speak Tswana often, like I say every day, you meet them I don't know, every now and again, and then you can, really engage with them in your vernacular because, guys, everything just sounds better when you say it in your mother tongue. So I'm very, very, very happy that Tariq started this initiative of VernacNews. I was very excited, oh my goodness, I can write in my own language. My Tswana writing is not good, it sucks because from primary school to high school, even if it's a rule, you're not allowed to speak Tswana, in primary or high school, it's a rule. If you want to speak your language, then go to the kasi and go learn your Tswana and whatnot there. So for me to be able to express myself in my own language at this higher institution, it means a lot to me, and that is all I'm going to say.
Thank you very much. I just want to give a brief description of an experience that I had. But I'm mostly here to listen, so I won't be talking too much because I think I want to hear the opinions of others. I think I've been talking too much on this particular topic. But what I want to say is to give just a brief story. If you go into the Photobid building in the food court, you look on your left, you see a huge painting. It's a bull. Inside the bull, it's a black man with a Jimmy Chigia out. By the bull, you see a small little girl, white girl. By the white girl, you see a huge African man. You can see the depiction. From then on, you move to go to the Oppenheimer Library. What do you see? As you enter the library, you see a portrait. It's a white man and a black woman. They are having sex. You move up one stairs from the library. What do you see? You see a painting, a metal statue of Sarah Parkman. You move to your left, you also see another painting. It's a woman sitting on the chair. 3 little black kids, what are they doing? They are washing in what seems to be a basin of some sort. You move from the building, you go to a BT building, you go to the second computer lab, you look at around, what are the poses there? It's black people, black poor people being displayed. It seems like there seems to be this thing around UCT, around institutional symbolism. It paints black people as poor, savages, and civilized. And it says to black people, do not be proud of your blackness. When I came to UCT, I started feeling black. Why? Because of the institutional symbolism. It doesn't say, hello, black students, how are you doing? You are not accepted within the institution. So, the issue around what is an African institution, it's a complex question, difficult question, one which we always need to be engaging on. But there are certain aspects that you need to be saying to the institution, you need to change things. This whole issue around the social statue is not only about that. You need to look at it in a broader context. You need to look at the whole institutional symbolism around how UCT represents black people in this space. Because, even if you were to look at the discourse around the statue, it's very much negative. And how do we expect people to change if the institutions that were there to ensure that black people are excluded still remain the same in terms of the culture, in terms of symbolism? People won't change. And whenever the time arises, they are going to come out with their particular views. Because if you are to look at the discourse around what we are hitting now, it is very much similar to what people were saying in terms of the olden days. Look at the discourse. It will be black people, why are you behaving like children? Why are you being so uncivilized? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? That's so barbaric. Why are you black people throwing poo at a particular stage? That's the whole conversation around what we're hitting. But we're not speaking about the largely white kids who are doing what they call 6x7s, drinking alcohol, running around, vomiting on each other. But we're not speaking about that. We're not speaking about Jabuli water polo, white students drinking alcohol, vomiting on each other and playing water polo. Who has to clean that? Who has to clean that? It is the black people that have to clean it. Why are we not speaking about that? Suddenly people care about black students. There's this thing about, we are seeing a black worker. In fact, it shows you the situation of the black man in this institution. Black people had a protest, they called somebody black to clean it up because we don't have a choice. We have to end the living. So that's, in short, what I want to say. But the discourse needs to be broader. We should not be speaking about the acting itself. Because I tell you, for a very long time, students have been protesting, have been saying that something is wrong about the statue, but the institution continually says, no, nothing is wrong about it. We are saying to the man, he gave the university land, and we have to pay him for that. A statue is not the right way of doing it, because the statue glorifies somebody. We need to be engaging around that. We need to be engaging around the institutional symbolism. So that's what I'm submitting to the House. I would like to have engagement around those issues. Thank you very much.
I'm working in ARC, and I'm a second year speech pathology student here at UCT. 90% I newspaper, the student newspaper in the neck. Last year, about HUMA first edition. At HUMA, I saw an opportunity I saw it as an opportunity for myself personally. And I enjoy so I feel like can't balance cause I can express when I'm doing the wind and long eye. So that's one again and pep and it's a great opportunity for me first especially. Obviously I saw it as an opportunity for us as a university society. Last time I checked, we were around 26,000 people, population of this society which is known as the University of Cape Town. I saw Balogun Pep as an opportunity with Tina. Sibonakali is the diversities now. We always talk about diversity, the diversity we have as a university, but we always talk about it. We know it for a fact that UCT is the most, or one of the most diverse universities in our country. But then I wanted Balogun newspaper not just as an opportunity to talk about it, but to show that UCT is actually diverse. Njani, leave the neck, Balogun needs. Abantu abaninzi bebengaya batsho bayiqonda bathi UCT kukho isiTswana. kukho isiXhosa, kukho isiZulu. Abantu abaninzi bazawude bayazi lokubana xa isithi lalala ijoba lithetha ukuthini. Angavela ayifake noba kuphi apho engayikhona. Ndiyaqinisekisa ndizivile into ezinjalo zithembe ufumanise uba ngendawo kodwa ke kube khona umXhosa uyafuna uyisebenzisa le siXhosa into makaziveze isiXhosa makayisebenzise ke noba ngendawo. Kodwa ke ndiye ndayifumanisa nje le newspapers and opportunity into yokubana abantu bakwazi ukufumanisa uba thini nam ndiyakwazi ukuthetha isiXhosa sam, ndiyakwazi ukufunda isiXhosa kumntu olingana nam. Akuthi ze ndikwazi ukuqonda into yokokubana iqhalo emfaka okanye isaci esifanele ilalala ijoba lalala umbethe ufuna ndifowunele umama ekhaya. Kodwa ndiqonda ukuthi okwesithathu i-VernacNews yibone as an opportunity again to make our 11 official languages really official. Not to only just talk about them being official languages, but then to make them really official. I should feel free ukunokola kunye nomapaseka ngesiXhosa sam. Ndingenaloyiko lokuza kucinga uba ndiyamthuka kuba ngelishwa thina amaXhosa kuthiwa siyaxabana xa sithethana. Sixabana xa sitheni kuba umntu owakhe wayibukela ibali likabantu zakhe sicekile kwincwadi Tata Neves Sound. Uyasiphula kwisiXhosa futhi uyasazi of isiXhosa is one of the softest languages. But it only depends on what you're talking about. But if you want it to be robust, it will be. So nake eyona into ndiye ndakhomba mandibe na indima endidlalayo kuphepha i-VernacNews ngenxa yaloo nto ngenxa yokuba senza siqonde ukubana we are not just diverse, but we can show it. Our languages are there. Siyakwazi ukuthetha isiXhosa sethu ngaphezu koko kufuna sizifile free ukuthetha isiXhosa. Ngaphezu koko abantu sebenzela bayalidawutha. Ndiyacela mna bendile alifuna ungalithathi kancini iphepha elisemgangathweni because lithetha nge-current affairs. Kodwa okuvuyisayo ngalo ngeelwimi zethu ngento uzayi-understanda. Kangoba kwenye umbongo endingafunda ubhalwe ngolwethu athetha ngesiko. Yinto esiyiqondayo leyo. Kodwa ngamanye amaxesha abantu abaninzi abayiqondi kuba ibhalwanga ngeelwimi zwakho. Kodwa ngoku uyibhalile olwethu ayichazi uba yintoni isiko. Udathi awuthethi noba kanjani kodwa lufuna intlonipho. Ukuze ithuba ke kwi-first edition yakhona kuyifunde nawe xa unethuba uzayibhalela idithethayo. Ngoko I would like to invite you to embrace it and engage with it because kuphela if thina sibeke emgangathweni apho lokuba besemgangathweni.
Wow, thank you. I mean, it's been a wonderful conversation, very rich conversation. I could see right at the back, my colleagues were very excited, particularly when Tarek was talking, because some of the things that you were saying resonate a lot with what we do here at HUMA. HUMA runs the Timbuktu Manuscript Project. So, we know very well about the history of Timbuktu and what is happening in Mali, etc. But there are also other things that are so important that a lot of the speakers have raised about being African and what that really means. I mean, I really liked Don Vuyo when you put it so eloquently. Usithi ulenza njani isiko lakho kwenu okanye uzichaza njani wena uma ungubani xa uhlele res. Because even actually the spatial arrangement itself is problematic sometimes. We don't even think about that. But again, yeah, couldn't this business know what to say and Pastor Perez. Noma Pastor put it really nicely. Some of the rituals and cultures in the guy at UCT, things around orientation week, etc., which alienate some of the students.